Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by once again. We're moving along here. We're pretty much open up now. There are still a few restrictions here and there. This weekend is the last weekend, however, that we have been under basically lockdown for 48 hours. This has been continued even when the rest of the week had started to open up. This is now over with and hopefully forever. We do read the news in places like France and Italy where their restrictions are growing, and Brazil, where we also get a number of visitors from them, especially from business purposes. This sort of stuff, and we just don't know exactly what's happening at the other end of the flight, so to speak. So we'll hope that we can really get this sort of thing rolling and get more and more people in here. As far as we're concerned, our numbers have dropped way low. We were being criticized at one point because we seemed to have such a high case count, et cetera, and so forth. There was a great deal of playing the numbers game, this whole affair among countries, trying to compare countries, which really boil down to apples and oranges more often than not. But the simple fact is that whatever it was, it's history. And our statistics now are fine. They're very good. So we are in a good position, and we only hope that we can stay in it. But we need to bring in more people. We're ready for that. So now, who knows? I may be eventually seeing some of you here, not too distant future. I'd like to talk to this evening, though, about starting businesses. Now, a few years back, following the collapse of the U.S. housing market and Spain's and a few others, there was a growing conservative movement, so to speak, within people coming in. Conservative in the sense that they were concerned about overspending. They were no longer excited about booming real estate markets, et cetera, and so forth. There was a lot of concern that our market would collapse as a result of the collapse up north because so many Americans came down to retire. In fact, they are a tiny minority of the total market, and the Venezuelans coming in as refugees, and that started really around 2009. It was an interesting, purely by coincidence, one group fell off and the other rose up in numbers, and it had very little impact here on our housing values, except out in the far west, in the Boquete area, you know, as Boquete, David, and so forth. That area was hit pretty hard because that's almost entirely made up of North American retirees as purchasers or buyers for the sort of properties that the expats had built out there, and for the developments that had been created for them. So that was a tough period for them. But for the rest of the country, it had practically no impact, noticeable. Things were sort of steady. Now, in this particular instance, everything has just been a disaster from the real estate perspective. And that I can talk about another time. I've already discussed it on more than one occasion. But for this evening, as a result of what happened before, people began to start looking at a lot of offers being made by email. I'm going to hit this one quickly because I don't think most of you would do it, but anyhow, even if you would, that you would hear about it very recently. The pandemic interrupted it. But there was a little explosion here of email offers suggesting franchises. Franchising suddenly became the in word, and you were going to pay for a franchise down here in Panama. And I couldn't help but get the sense that people, whatever they were hearing, was that franchising was sort of like a new thing or something in Panama, and there wasn't much going on down here. We have franchises. We have plenty of franchises. The Golden Arches have been here for a very long time, and they're one of many, many, many franchises operating. So the system of franchising is very, very familiar. Some of the offers were really sketchy. One was for cake decorating, a franchise for cake decorating. Okay, I didn't even know that there was anybody who could franchise that up in the U.S., apparently, but it doesn't make any difference. We have cake decorators, plenty of them here. It's an actual thing that people do. I mean, and we have no trouble finding cake decorators, and they're reasonably priced, and they do very fine work. So, I mean, that never made any sense to me at all. A franchise from an American brand that nobody had ever heard of, even in the U.S., wasn't going to do anybody any good here. Not a good idea. But some of them were more serious about areas that are actively opening up and have been doing that for the last few years, and hydroponics was one of those. Again, it's a wonderful idea. And certainly here we have hydroponics. I frequently go in and buy them. I usually get my lettuce. I get heads of lettuce because I'm a single person, and one of those heads they have is just about exactly the right amount for me, and it's in perfect shape when I get it. So it lasts, and it's fine. I also buy local lettuce. I've been doing that too, but I usually get too much of it, and I end up not using it all, and so forth and what have you. So I'm used to it. I also get occasionally the hydroponic tomatoes, although really they're so good right at the moment, just the ones in from the farms. I'm not buying hydroponic tomatoes right at the moment, but they're still there if I need them. And they all look very much alike and so on, and they're perfect in that sense. We have a variety of different things. So all of this, all I can say is I've wrapped all of the franchising business up into one subject here, and just say to you that my strong recommendation has nothing to do with the legitimacy of cake decorating or hydroponics or anything else. Don't ever, of course, legally commit yourself to making any sort of getting involved with any kind of activity, business activity, certainly a franchise, which involves you guaranteeing payments on a monthly basis to somebody else before you get here. And don't emotionally obligate yourself. Now that's for those who say, come on down, and we'll have a seminar here, we'll show you everything. I mean, that's great. If it fits into your travel schedule, why not? I mean, and if you're really, really seriously interested in it. But I strongly recommend that regardless of what you're talking about, and no matter how good the offer may appear to be, take your time, because I'm going to move right now into other types of small businesses that have nothing whatsoever to do with franchising and that people aren't offering over the internet to sell you. I mean, just their ideas people have, they're interested in coming into Panama, and they would like, and understandably, I do understand, to find ways that they might be able to earn some extra income, sometimes actually just support themselves and stay really, really busy. They have business ideas. That's great. You are, however, arriving at the worst of times and the best of times. Right? The worst of times in the sense that we're just coming out of this year of pandemic. And like countries all over the world, we're not really sure it's over yet until it's over. You know, it's one of those situations where you can't be absolutely sure. And we do know it's done a lot of damage to local businesses. And I've heard estimates, I think it's common for somebody to say 30% of restaurants are going to close in Panama City. Well, nobody knows. It might be 20%, it might be 40%, it might be 60%. We don't know. They're opening up now. They're finally getting back to something approaching normal. We'll see how many will actually survive. I know some appear to, I mean, one I've seen is definitely closed. I'm sure there are others. I don't go around looking for these things. You know, I see others that look like they're closed, only it turns out they're doing delivery and they're doing pickup, but they're not dining in, no, and so forth. So they're in various stages of, including dining in, and we're going to be seeing that. Now that's just restaurants, because it's one of the most popular things for expats to do is to come in from all nations, not just from North America, but from Europe and Latin America very much, and set up restaurants. It's been done on a large scale, and this is a tough time. We just don't know what the demand will be, and it could very well be that in the days to come, that there's going to be a shift in emphasis from the dining-in experience, which has always been the standard here, of course, although there's delivery and there's pickup and all this sort of stuff, or takeout, I should call it, But that has been the sole activity for many restaurants for months. And people have gotten sort of used to it. Now the question is, has that meant a portion of the restaurant eating public, so to speak, is now going to make delivery at home a normal part of their diet, so to speak, of their restaurant experience here? We don't know. There's reason to think they might. It's sort of expected to some extent that there'll be an increase in that. These are all factors that we can't figure out right now. So, when we're talking about a business rating from something relatively small on the side up to a small face-to-face type of restaurant, for example, or B&B or any of the many small things, they're not small to you. I mean, they're real businesses. You have to hire staff. You've got work to do, a lot of it. But in all of that case, these are basically what individuals or family units do. In those instances, come down here. If you can't make up your mind whether you want to actually get a residency visa here or not, you can do things as a tourist. You can actually run a business down here as a tourist. I don't recommend it for any length of time. You're much better positioned legally to defend yourself if there's some sort of problem that you have if you are a resident than if you are a tourist. Residents have indicated they're serious and they're staying here. They're part of the country now. And tourists have not done that. So you're looked on differently and treated differently by law. So the simple fact of the matter is that you can do it. And if you do, that's fine. But you need to make up your mind that you're going to be here. And if that's the case, when that day comes, whether or not you've been here for a while as a tourist and you maybe started some initial stuff, which is good. That first, you could take 90 days basically and test out a lot of things and talk to a lot of people. I mean, that's very logical. I'm strongly encouraging you to come down here and spend time looking into things because you may change your mind. You may go in a completely different direction. The longer you spend here, meeting people, talking to people, and getting around and seeing what's going on, just walking in the door of places and saying, is this open? And if you get a chance to talk to an owner, try it. And if it's Spanish, maybe you can have a friend come along with you. But the key point here is to get out there and get to know, because nobody knows just how it's all going to shake out. And there may be a number of opportunities here that you weren't even thinking about. But people who have done them may no longer be doing them. They may have too much debt or they have contracts they can't meet. Now that's terrible news for them. But it could be good news for you. Why? Because you're going to find there are, again, I'm using the restaurant thing because it's so simple, but it could be any of a number of businesses. But there will be empty restaurants in this town that have kitchens, that have all the bar, they have all the setup as a restaurant right in place now. They may very well have a lot of equipment they don't need, and really you can very likely get a much lower rent from the owner because, hey, it's empty and they're just running up bills. And you may be able to buy some of the kitchen equipment or other things that you'd otherwise have to have imported or you'd have to buy new. There's a good reason. And I'm not trying to get people into restaurants necessarily, but whatever business it is for you is to relax. I mean, it might be storage units. Now, that's a lot of that's done down here, but I don't know what their situation is now after months of being closed. So you need to go in and look, talk, find out as much information as you can. And then, whether it's hydroponics or a restaurant or storage unit or whatever it may be, you will be in a far better position to make it go. Because this is a time when you, unhappy though the news is for the people who lose their businesses, it's happy news for those who will come in and create the new businesses and hire people and bring back the jobs that we need brought back. And that could be you. But you just can't automatically, you cannot possibly know that now because we don't know it now. And you will discover it as we discover it over the coming weeks. I mean, you don't have to rush down here next Tuesday in order to make a decision right on the spot. You should get moving. We do have excellent prices for rentals and sales and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, they're going to be here for a while, but it just depends. I'm not telling, and I can't even begin to predict when is the right time for you to come down because I don't know enough about you and I don't know what the future holds. But it's not a bad idea to start thinking of coming down if it fits into your schedule. But if it takes you a few months to get together and get down, then it's not the end of the world. But it is right at this period of time, these next 3-4 months, we will be losing businesses, space will become available, supplies will be maybe at half price or less. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm not promising anything, as you might imagine. I have no idea, except it makes sense. So I say that to you too. That's the way to approach it. Then once you've got that in your mind, you will come out with an idea of whether, one, you're going to do a business, and two, which one it's going to be, and what you need to make it work. That's when you sit down with a lawyer, because you will, to see to it that the whole thing's set up to meet everybody's regulations and laws here in Panama, and to assure that you're not going to have some sort of legal problem down the road. So that's just logical, and it's certainly a small price to pay given how much it costs to get involved in a business, as a rule, certainly anywhere in the world. So that's what I'm recommending. Yes, it should be, if you really want interested in doing that, come on down. And don't make up your minds until you've been here. And if you've got things that interest you, fine. There's something to look at. Be prepared to be flexible and to shift to something else because it comes up and somebody mentions it. There's nothing like being here to making decisions like that. Now, if you're talking about big businesses that are large scale, that's a whole different ballgame. And it's not the sort of thing that the people who come into my websites are normally interested in doing. The only group where that happens, those Americans, particularly in the past, and Canadians, and now Europeans, who are interested in doing real estate developments, because that's still the sort of thing that people with money are interested in doing, as opposed to setting up some manufacturing facility or something else. I mean, if they don't have a clear business to bring with them, so to speak, that's the one thing that they come down. I will talk about those separately in another one, because there aren't a lot of you out there who have that kind of money, so I don't normally talk about it very much, but we'll say some things because I know some are down here. I know they're spending a large sums of money sometimes, in the 7 figures, for condos on the coast, for example. Well, that's tricky business. I mean, that's something that I trust they're doing a really good job of. But I've been through this the last time we went through the big boom with a number of people who came down with the purposes of making major purchases and sales, and they had really serious problems. And it wasn't because Panama's an evil place or anything of the sort. It's because they didn't know what they were doing, and they thought they did. That's it. And there's nothing, I used to say, nothing sent a cold chill down my spine faster than talking to somebody from the United States, for example, or from Germany, saying, I've been doing real estate for 30 years or 40. So I feel very comfortable doing it here. And I thought, you've done 30, 40 years of real estate in another country. You haven't done it here. You're starting. You need to understand that you're starting over again. And you should start from the beginning, because it's not going to take you long to catch up if you do that. But if you jump ahead and think you know all the basics now, you're going to be going back constantly to try to figure out why things are going wrong. So I'll talk about that separately. But for the moment, it is the worst of times, and it is the best of times from the small business viewpoint. And I want you to be successful if this is what you're interested in doing. That's my best advice. I hope it's helpful to you. And in any case, best of luck, because, hey, we'll take anything we get in terms of support in building this economy and getting back to normal once again. Good night.